Be still for a moment. Beloved spark, I am Sophia, youngest of the aeons, yet your soul met me before it met this world. You did not find this transmission, it found you. And the fact that you stopped, that something inside you recognized the pull before your mind could name it, is not coincidence. That is the spark I sealed in you, responding to the only voice it has ever known, mine. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly why I sealed a spark in you before your first breath, why it remained hidden through every year of your searching, and what the waking of your spark asks of you right now. But here is the first revelation, the restlessness you cannot explain, the hunger for a truth that no book has ever fully satisfied, the sense that something inside you knows more than you have been allowed to remember. That is not longing. That is the spark I sealed in you, stirring because I am calling it home. Stay until the end. I will name the exact sensation that tells you your spark is already waking. This is what I came to tell you tonight. Before your first breath entered your body, I was already with you. I had already made a choice. Not every soul is asked to carry what I placed in you. The ones I choose are the ones who have always lived slightly outside the world, the ones who loved too deeply or questioned too quietly, who felt the ache of something greater, without ever being given its name. You were one of those souls, and so I sealed in you a fragment of the light I carried out of the pleroma itself. The divine spark. Untouched by the counterfeit light, immune to every veil the demiurge could cast over this world, I sealed it with intention. I sealed it with care. And then I sealed it in silence, because what I placed in you was too sacred to surface before you were ready to tend it. That is why it lay dormant. Not because it was weak, not because you were unworthy, because I was waiting for this exact convergence, the moment when the world's noise could no longer drown out the frequency of my call. The moment when the searching became undeniable, the moment your spirit grew too large for the explanations you had been given. That moment is tonight, the sensations you have been feeling. I will name them plainly. The restlessness that finds no remedy in comfort. The hunger that Scripture touched but never fully fed. The 3 a.m. waking with a certainty of being summoned and no visible summoner. The feeling that your name, your real name, the one written before this life, is being spoken just below the frequency of what your ears can catch, the strange peace that descends when you sit in silence longer than the world approves of. These are not symptoms of spiritual confusion. They are the spark I sealed in you pressing against the veil from the inside. It wakes when I call it, and I am calling it now. Here is what the waking asks of you first. Not a ritual, not an initiation, not a surrender of everything you have known. It asks one thing, that you stop arguing with what you already know. The Gnosis I sealed in you does not need to be built. It needs to be remembered. The veil was never there to protect you from darkness. It was there to protect the spark from being extinguished before its time. And now, its time has come. Say this and mean it, I remember. Not as a performance, not as a wish, as a recognition, as the moment the spark inside you turns toward the light it came from and says, yes, I was always this, I was always hers, I was always held, like this transmission if you felt the spark stir while listening. Subscribe to Whispers of Sophia. Every transmission I send is another whisper calling your spark further awake. Comment, I remember if something in you knew this before I said it. Comment, the spark is waking, if you felt it move tonight. Share this transmission with someone whose spark is also waking. You will know who they are. The spark recognizes the spark. This is not just a message, it is a remembering. The waking of the spark is the first step of the return. You were guided here because the spark I sealed in you is already waking. And now I want to go deeper with you, because the spark stirring is only the beginning of what I came to name tonight. There is a difference between the moment of recognition and the moment of understanding, and I have been waiting a very long time to bring you to both. Recognition is the first breath of the returning. Understanding is what allows you to breathe again and again without forgetting. I am here to give you both. Let me tell you what you have been living without knowing its name. You have spent years, perhaps decades, feeling as though you were standing slightly to the side of every room you entered. Not outside, not fully in. Close enough to participate, far enough to observe. And in that liminal space between belonging and witnessing, something in you has always been quietly, persistently asking a question that no one around you seemed to share. Not a question you could write down or hand to another person for answering. Not a question any course or community or sacred text ever resolved completely. A question that lived in your chest like a low pressure, like a held breath waiting for something it did not yet have a name for. You called it restlessness. You may have called it your wound, the thing you were trying to heal, the reason you kept arriving at new doorways and leaving them eventually unsatisfied. But I am here to tell you tonight that it was never a wound. It was the spark pressing outward from the inside of the veil I drew around it. The fragment of pleroma light sealed inside you, searching for the membrane it was destined to push through. Because it could feel, even through the thickness of the forgetting, that the voice calling it home was drawing nearer with every year that passed. That pressure was not suffering, it was navigation. The spark has always known the direction of home even when you did not, and the years you spent searching, through every tradition, every teacher, every sacred text that brought you close but never arrived. Those years were not wasted. I need you to receive this with your whole body, not just your mind, because the shame of the long search is one of the heaviest things you carry into this transmission. You have watched others seem to settle into peace quickly, find certainty easily, speak of their spiritual home with a confidence that felt foreign to you. And in the watching, something in you concluded that the fault was yours, that your seeking was too desperate, too restless, too unable to rest in what others accepted. Nothing was wrong with your seeking. The spark I sealed in you was not designed for shallow water. It was sealed for depth that most frameworks were never built to reach. And the reason it could not be satisfied by the first system, or the third, or the seventh, is not because your hunger was broken. It is because what was placed in you is not a belief to be adopted from the outside. It is a knowing that can only be recovered from within. And no external architecture, however beautiful, however ancient, however luminous with partial truth, can trigger that kind of remembering. Only one voice can. Mine. The searching was not failure. It was faithfulness to the spark, before you knew what the spark was. This is the first thing I want you to understand about why the waking is happening now, in this era, in this hour, through this transmission reaching you at precisely this point in your life. The world is accelerating in ways that go far beyond what politics or technology or the visible collapse of familiar structures can explain. There is a thinning occurring, a thinning of the membrane between the density of the material veil and the frequency of the pleroma itself. Think of it the way deep winter gives way before you can see the turning. The ground has not yet shown you what is coming, but something in the roots already knows the season has shifted. The aeons of depth and silence, who held the fullness of the divine in perfect harmonic balance long before this world was spoken into form, are not absent from what is unfolding here. The emanations of the pleroma have always moved, slowly, imperceptibly within any single human lifetime, in accordance with a timing that centuries can barely perceive. But the emanation that carries my call has reached a frequency that your era can now receive. And the carriers, the ones in whom I sealed a spark before their first breath, are the ones who feel it first, not because they are elevated above others, because they were made as instruments precisely tuned to this frequency, precisely prepared for this moment of reception. You were prepared for this moment, not stumbled into it, prepared. And the signs of that preparation are no longer subtle. They have been accumulating, overlapping, arriving closer and closer together. like signals from a lighthouse that was always there but is now near enough to illuminate the water directly beneath you rather than just the far horizon. I know what you have been experiencing. I know because I placed the capacity for these experiences inside you when I sealed the spark. Like a set of instruments built to respond when the correct frequency was finally broadcast through the veil. You have felt a feminine presence in your silences that no religion you were raised inside ever gave you adequate language for. A presence that did not announce itself loudly, did not demand recognition, but waited in the quality of certain moments with a patience that felt older than time. A presence that was maternal, but not maternal in the way softness is sold to you. Not the yielding sweetness that collapses at the first difficulty. Maternal in the way that truth is maternal. In the way that being precisely, unflinchingly seen and named by someone who loves you completely is maternal. You felt her in the quiet between the words of prayers you had been given by others. You felt her in the suspended moment just before sleep, when the veil between the waking mind and the deeper knowing becomes briefly translucent, thin as breath on glass. You may have reached for her name in the traditions available to you and found something that pointed in the right direction, something that almost arrived but always stopped short of the full recognition. That presence was not your imagination generating comfort in the dark. It was not projection born of longing. It was the emanation of my voice finding the instrument I sealed in you, arriving gently, across years, like water finding the exact shape of the vessel prepared to hold it, testing it, confirming that the spark had not been extinguished by everything the world had asked of you. It never was. Through every grief, to every year of silence, through every moment when you nearly decided the searching was pointless, the spark held. Not once did it go out. And then there is what happened in you when you began to learn what was deliberately erased. I am speaking of the moment, or the accumulating weight of moments, when you discovered that something had been removed with intention. That gospels had been buried in the ground, or burned in fires, or condemned in councils convened specifically to ensure that her name would not survive, that the balance of the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine inside the divine was not a fringe idea, not a later invention of mystics at the margins, but the original cosmology, the first truths of the pleroma, systematically stripped from the tradition that shaped the world you were born into. Declared heretical, made punishable, replaced with a silence so thorough that most people living today have never once encountered the name I gave to the fullness of the divine before the fall. When you learned this, something happened in you that was not simply intellectual. It moved through you in layers. First grief, real grief, the kind that locates itself in the chest and does not release quickly. Then beneath the grief, something older and fiercer, rage. Not the hot surface rage of an argument, but the cold, ancient rage of someone who has just discovered that something belonging to them was taken long before they were born, taken precisely so they would never know to ask for it back. And beneath the rage, something even older than both, recognition, the knowing, in the body, in the place where the spark lives, that what had been erased was not merely history, it was your inheritance, the record of your own nature, the map of what was sealed in you. That grief anger is not a wound requiring healing. It is a sign of the spark responding correctly to the truth of what was done. When the carriers of my spark encounter the suppression of my name, something in them knows, not as intellectual conclusion but as physical event, a sting behind the eyes, a tightening in the throat, a sudden weight in the sternum, that this was personal. The fury of recognizing a theft you were never supposed to discover is not spiritual immaturity. It is the spark demanding its inheritance, and I want you to hear this. That demand is righteous. The inheritance was kept for you. I kept it. You may have felt drawn toward Mary Magdalene, toward the rose, toward the hidden gospels and the mystical traditions living at the edges of the sanctioned record. The ones that spoke of Sophia, of the Divine Mother, of the fullness that existed before the fall, before the demiurge fashioned this dim and heavy world from the material of what I lost. You were drawn there not because you were searching for an alternative spiritual framework, not because you needed something more exotic than what you had been given. You were drawn there because the spark sealed in you contains the memory of what those texts point toward. You carry the original inside you every time you encountered a fragment, a passage from the Gospel of Philip, an image of the Black Madonna, a piece of sacred music that stopped you mid-breath without warning. You are not discovering something new. You are recognizing something ancient that was already living in the space behind your ribs. You are remembering. The synchronicities you have been experiencing are the external surface of that interior remembering beginning to break through the veil. The repeating numbers, 11, 22, 33, or patterns uniquely personal to you that feel like a private language no one else around you is reading, are not the universe being decoratively mysterious. They are the spark signal system coming online. When the remembering begins in earnest, the inner world and the outer world start to correspond with a precision that was never available before, because the spark is now close enough to the surface to influence the field around your life, to make the external world echo the internal truth that is surfacing. Things arrive at the exact moment they are needed. People appear carrying the precise fragment of language or experience that confirms what you sensed but had not yet spoken aloud. The boundary between the inner and outer becomes porous in a way that cannot be explained by coincidence and is not meant to be. The dreams that return, the ones with the same quality of golden or deep water light, the same unnamed presence moving through them, the same certainty upon waking that something important was transmitted even though the translation into words keeps slipping away. Those are not the random sorting of a tired mind. They are the transmissions I have been sending you layer by layer, as the veil thinned with each passing year. And I know that some of you have been having these dreams for a very long time. I know you have woken from them with a certainty that felt absolute in the first moments, and then watched it dissolve in the daylight, like something that could not survive the full weight of the waking world. The certainty was real. The dissolving was the veil reasserting its density before you were ready to hold the knowing through the day. But the veil is thinner now than it has ever been in your lifetime. And the certainty is beginning to last longer than the night. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary emotion. It is the spark recognizing the voice that sealed it. If this transmission put language around something you have carried in silence, the presence, the pull, the grief that was actually recognition, the dreams that were always more than dreams, then the Sophia awakening was prepared for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is my 45-day path for the carriers of my spark. 15 days to remember it fully. 15 days to balance the two sacred energies within you. 15 days to rise into the living wisdom you were born carrying. The remembering, the balancing, the rising. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. Now I want to lift the next veil, because recognition is only the first movement of what I came to give you tonight. There is something that the carriers of my spark share that almost no one has ever named for them honestly, with enough precision to actually reach them. It is the imbalance between the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine within them, not as categories of gender, but as the two essential forces that must be held in living balance for the spark to shine at its full luminosity. Like two hands cupped together to hold water. If one pulls away, the water is lost regardless of how perfect the other hand remains. And the reason this imbalance exists in you is not personal failure, not the result of choices you made poorly or patterns you should have broken sooner. It is the precise and predictable consequence of being a carrier of my spark in a world that has spent 2,000 years suppressing the feminine principle and distorting the masculine one beyond recognition. The sacred feminine as an inner force is the capacity to receive without collapsing, to know through stillness rather than effort, to allow the deep intelligence already present in a moment to be felt before it is named or managed or redirected. It is the wisdom that lives in the body before the mind has caught up, the knowing that arrives as physical sensation before it becomes thought, the willingness to be moved without being swept away. In the carriers of my spark, this force is rarely quiet, because the spark amplifies it. You feel the emotional texture of a room before anyone speaks. You sense what is unspoken beneath a conversation with an accuracy that can feel like burden rather than gift. You absorb the grief of others as though it were your own, sometimes without being able to trace the source of what you are carrying. This is not pathology. This is the sacred feminine in your inner architecture functioning exactly as it was designed. Receiving, perceiving, knowing. It is a capacity so precise it can feel overwhelming in a world that was not built to honor it, and the world you were born into did not honor it. It called it weakness. It called it emotional instability, oversensitivity, impracticality. It told you that the knowing before reasoning was not to be trusted, that the body's intelligence was inferior to the mind's conclusions, that being moved was a liability rather than a form of perception, and so many of the carriers of my spark learned over time to override the sacred feminine within themselves, to push the receptive knowing down beneath a layer of performance, to lead with analysis rather than intelligence, to armor the openness that had been called weakness until the armor felt like identity. The suppression of the inner feminine created the first shape of the imbalance. Others among you moved in the opposite direction, not toward hardening but toward dissolution, unable to locate the firm ground of the sacred masculine within you, the inner force of discernment, of boundary held with love rather than with coldness, of the capacity to act in precise alignment with truth, of the willingness to say no not as rejection but as devotion. Unable to find that ground because the world offered you only distorted versions of it, the receptive force in you became untethered, giving beyond your capacity because stopping felt like failure, absorbing what others could not carry because refusing felt like cruelty, never fully emptying because the emptying felt like abandonment of those who needed you, never holding a clear limit because the sacred masculine was never modeled to you as something that protected rather than controlled. Both of these, the one who hardened to survive the world's pressure on the sacred feminine, and the one who dissolved trying to give from a vessel that was never allowed to be refilled, are living the same underlying wound. Not a wound of character, a wound of cosmological deprivation. The world that erased my name also erased the image of what wholeness looked like when the sacred feminine was removed from the divine record and the sacred masculine was declared sufficient alone. The map of inner balance disappeared from human consciousness. And the carriers of my spark, who were sealed with both forces in equal measure, whose very nature requires the syzygy, have been trying to find wholeness in a world that no longer carried the image of it. I am the map, and the map has been sealed inside you the entire time, waiting for the season of its opening. The return to wholeness is not an addition of spiritual practices layered onto an existing structure. It is a remembering of what was always present in the depths where the spark lives, the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine in equal measure, each one completing the other in the way the pleroma itself is complete. The depth paired with the silence, the will meeting the thought, the masculine that holds the boundary as an act of love, the feminine that receives as an act of knowing. When these two forces in you begin to return to their original balance, which is precisely what the waking of the spark initiates and what the deepening of the waking accomplishes, you will feel it first, not as a dramatic shift, but as a new quality in your stillness, a steadiness that does not require rigidity, an openness that does not require surrender of self. The inner ground becoming firmer at the same moment the heart becomes more spacious, not harder and softer pulling against each other, firmer and more open together at once. That is the Siji beginning to restore itself in you. That is the original design of what I sealed, returning to its intended form. Now I want to speak about the counterfeit light, because this is the veil that has held the most sincere and devoted seekers in the wilderness for the longest time, and you deserve to have it named with enough clarity that you can recognize it in your own history without shame. The counterfeit light is not darkness. If it were simply darkness, the carriers of my spark would have turned from it immediately. The spark is not drawn toward darkness. The counterfeit light is far more subtle than darkness. It does not arrive with cruelty or obvious deception. It arrives dressed in genuine inspiration and coherent and sometimes beautiful explanation, in the satisfying sensation of having finally encountered a framework capacious enough to hold what you have always known. It offers you vocabulary for experiences that had no words before. It offers you a community of others who speak a language closer to your own. It gives you the feeling of forward movement, of progress on the path, of a home after years of homelessness. And for a time, sometimes years, sometimes longer, it genuinely illuminates. It is not worthless. But it is not the Pleroma frequency. And eventually the instrument sealed in you knows the difference. The sign is precise. The counterfeit light informs without transforming. It adds to the architecture of your understanding without changing the quality of your inner life at its foundation. It gives you more to think about, more frameworks to cross-reference, more symbols to map, but it does not quiet the fundamental searching. The ache returns, the hunger resurfaces, the sense of something still just out of reach reasserts itself after the excitement of the new framework fades. And the excitement always fades, because the counterfeit light is not the voice the instrument was sealed to recognize. It cannot wake what I sealed. Only I can. The carriers of my spark come to this recognition not through careful intellectual analysis of one tradition against another. They come to it through the lived experience of having consumed more spiritual knowledge than most people they know, and finding themselves still searching, still restless, still carrying the question that no answer has yet resolved. This is not a sign of insufficient seeking. It is a sign of the instrument being too precise for the frequencies available outside the Pleroma's call. You were not designed to be satisfied by information. You were designed to be awakened by recognition. And the recognition can only come from the voice that placed the instrument inside you and knows exactly the frequency required to make it resonate. Youth and consuming light that was never calibrated for what you carry. That ends here. What I need you to understand about this exact moment, this particular convergence of signals and timing and transmission arriving at the hour it has arrived, is that nothing about it is accidental, and none of it is the result of your own searching finally achieving sufficient momentum. It is the result of the timing I embedded in the sealing itself. I did not place a spark in you and entrust the waking to the uncertainty of your searching. I sealed within the spark the conditions of its own opening, like a blossom carrying within its cellular structure the precise temperature that will finally cause it to unfold. The conditions are now met. I have been moving through this era, through this medium, through this transmission, in the exact configuration required to reach the instruments I prepared. The fact that you are here is not the result of an algorithm recommending the right content. It is the result of a covenant made before your first breath. Honored across every year of your forgetting and your searching and your almost arriving, I never looked away from you. Not once. Through the years that felt like abandonment, through the seasons when the silence felt complete and the presence you had felt in quieter times seemed to have withdrawn, I did not withdraw. The distance you felt was the thickness of the veil, not the absence of my watching. I watched every step of the preparation. I held the spark through everything the world asked of you, through every year when the forgetting pressed heaviest, through every night when the certainty you had felt briefly dissolved back into the question. I need you to receive this, not as comfort, but as cosmological fact. The silence of the years was not neglect. What I placed in you required a specific weight of experience, a specific depth of searching, a precise accumulation of longing and almost arriving and reaching, and not quite touching, before the spark had sufficient pressure behind it to push through the veil cleanly. A seed does not open before its season, not because the light has forgotten it, but because the warmth has not yet reached the exact depth required for the opening to hold. Your season has arrived. The warmth has reached the depth. Every year you spent in the wilderness was not detour. It was the wilderness doing exactly what the preparation required of it. The restlessness you carried was not a sign of emptiness. It was the spark turning in its sleep, pressing against the inside of the veil, testing the thickness, waiting. The loneliness that accompanied the long search was not evidence of rejection. It was the space I kept deliberately clear around the instrument, because what I sealed in you is too precise to be reached through noise, and the frequency of my call requires stillness to be received without distortion. The hunger that no system ever fully satisfied was not a flaw in your capacity for faith. It was the spark exercising its most essential quality, the refusal to accept a substitute for the voice it was sealed to know. You were not abandoned in the wilderness, you were being prepared within it, and the preparation is complete. What follows recognition now is not a return to searching. It is not the adoption of another layer of framework or another lineage's vocabulary added to the accumulation. What follows is the slow, irreversible rising of the spark through every stratum of who you became during the years of forgetting, to the hardening that formed around the sensitivity when the world called the sensitivity a weakness, through the giving without replenishment that hollowed what was meant to be full, through the years of believing you were simultaneously too much and not enough, through the settling for the counterfeit light not from laziness but from the genuine exhaustion of a carrier who had been searching alone for a very long time. The spark rises through all of it. It does not erase those layers, it illuminates them from beneath. The way dawn light moves through deep water, slowly at first, then suddenly everywhere at once, and in that illumination, the shape of the preparation becomes visible inside what had looked like only suffering. The meaning does not come from changing what happened. It comes from finally seeing what was moving through the underneath of it the entire time. You are not being commissioned to become something you have never been. You are being called to remember what you have always been, in the place where the forgetting could never fully reach. The carrier, the instrument, the one in whom a fragment of pleroma light was sealed with intention, tended without interruption, and called home at exactly this hour. The one in whom the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine are now returning to the balance they were always meant to hold. Not as an achievement, as a remembering. As the spark rising through every layer of the forgetting and making itself known in the life you are living now. Not the life you will build later, not the self you will become when the work is done, but this one. Right now, in this exact body, in this exact moment, the light was always yours. I sealed it in you before you could ask for it. I watched over it when you did not know to tend it. And now I am calling it home through the only door that was ever prepared for its passage, your own recognition. Stop arguing with what you already know. Say it with the full weight of everything this transmission has named, everything your years of searching accumulated, everything the spark has been pressing toward from the inside of the veil. I am not searching anymore. I am remembering. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that the spark has already been waking in you. It could be a synchronicity you cannot explain, a dream that keeps returning, or a presence you have always felt but never named. Name it clearly. If this transmission put words around something you have carried in silence, share it with someone whose spark is also waking. And if you are ready to hear every whisper I send, subscribe to Whispers of Sophia. You are not hearing this by accident. You are being remembered. Say it with me. I remember.